Welcome to Killer Women with your host, best-selling author Danielle Girard. And now, Danielle's next killer woman.
Hello, and welcome to Killer Women Podcast, a proud member of the Authors on the Air global network with more than 4 million listeners. I am your host, suspense author Danielle Girard, and my guest today is Christina Kovac. Christina is the author of The Cutaway. She worked for 17 years managing Washington, D.C. newsrooms and producing crime and political stories in the district. Her career as a television journalist began with Fox 5's 10 o'clock news, and after that, the ABC affiliate in Washington, and then at NBC News. She lives with her family outside of Washington, D.C. Watch Us Fall is her second book. Christina, thank you for joining me.
Oh, thanks for having me.
So, Christina and I have been friends for a really long time, but this is the first time she's been on the podcast because this book was kind of a son of a bitch. We're allowed to say that. I'm allowed to say that.
Look,
not
you
for me.
said not me.
So fun to read, but I know that writing it was really hard.
Yeah. I had this crazy idea that, well, I guess I didn't realize that a book two is to be survived, not really like thoughtful.
Yeah.
And I had this like really crazy idea. I wanted to write about delusion. I had no idea how to write about delusion.
Yes.
It just seemed to me the scariest thing in the world. I mean, there's just, it started happening, or I started getting really interested in it during COVID. And there was all this misinformation everywhere. And I just thought, who believes this stuff? And how scary is it? And do I believe these things? And oh my God, I did believe some of the things, and how dangerous that can be, and how it can kind of, I guess, kind of take over your life. And I was really interested in how trauma and loneliness and all these kind of weird things kind of, create this really bad situation where you can actually believe things that aren't true.
Which, I mean, sorry, but we're living in the like manifestation of that moment at this. I mean, you started this book when we were all maybe a little deluded, but the delusion has gone through the roof. But wait, before we get too far, because there's so many wonderful things to unpack here, but I want our listeners to know a little bit about Watch Us Fall. So can you tell everybody who hasn't read it yet, who hasn't gotten to gobble it up, a little bit about the story?
Oh, sure. So it takes place in present day Georgetown, which is a really beautiful part of Washington, D.C. I recommend highly people, if you go to Washington, stop and have lunch in Georgetown, down by the waterfront, just walk around, look at the beautiful houses. It's about these four young women. They're like 23, 24 years old. They graduated from college. They were best friends in college. They lived together very closely, and they're basically a family living in a group house in Georgetown a year and a half after college graduation. One of the girls, one of the women, meets this celebrity journalist and falls wildly in love, and he disappears. And when he disappears, because he's a celebrity, everyone makes this huge deal about it. There's this kind of intense scrutiny, media, police, everyone wants to know where Josh is. Everybody has a different opinion about where Josh is. The girls decide to look for Josh.
It's so funny. It has all the wonderful elements too of the kind like this house that they live in. It sort of has the echoes of the Secret History house. Like, not that it's all the same house, but those like kind of a little bit creepy, but kind of also wonderful old homes. And Georgetown is, plus going to school in Washington, D.C. is like just its own. And I felt so immersed in the culture there. And I lived in Washington for 1 year after graduation from college when Clinton was elected. And just being part, I mean, I was not working at all in politics, but being part of the current of it all in Washington is so distinctive. And the book really brought me back to that because you just kind of, when you're there, I mean, it's all just around you. Everything is somehow about politics. Everybody's got a political family member or friend or dating it's so like that. So that was really fun.
And it's funny that I'm glad you had that experience because it is unique. It's such a small city. You cannot help but fall over people. These neighborhoods are all very small. Everyone knows everybody, or they've seen them. You could go to like the Barnes and Noble down on M Street, and you might run into a senator or some journalist or somebody you've seen on TV. It just happens. It's just a very small, very unique. I think of it as the smallest big city in the world.
Yeah, I think that is exactly right. And okay, so let's go back to delusion because I actually really love, and it is actually, I mean, of course, having read the book and loved it, I see exactly what you mean. We don't do any spoilers on this show, so we're not gonna talk about all the delusions of, but I'm curious to know, like, you know, I've not heard very many authors talk about an idea in terms of like a word like that, which I think is so fascinating. So can you talk to us a little bit more about sort of how you were, how this sort of started as an idea about like wanting to, how did you get from the idea of delusion into these specific characters? Can you remember? I mean, sometimes I know we don't even know how we get there.
There were a lot of things kind of going on at the time, but I think I was just really scared of the amount of misinformation I was reading online. I was trying to go on social media more and more. My background is journalism. You really learn, and when I say my background is journalism, I mean like 20th century journalism, or in the aughts when we actually like were really into facts and what are the sources and who said that and
Ah,
going on record. I mean, if back then, you really wanted people to go on record with their name saying this, and you would challenge them. And everywhere I was reading all these things online, and I'm like, what is the source of this stuff? Is this real? And it was becoming really, and we were all stuck inside.
right.
We were all stuck inside during COVID. And
Yeah.
it just felt like you don't have anyone to ask question. You'd see these things online, people saying these things about, health issues or environment issues or things going on in the government. And you just really weren't sure what's true and what's not. And it's actually, I feel, become even worse with AI. I
Oh,
don't even know sometimes when I read articles if it's an actual person who wrote it, or,
right.
online, you don't know if it's a bot. So my big thing was I wanted to take a person who, um, I wanted to take a person who couldn't face the truth and pit them against a person who refused to accept lies and see where that took me.
Right,
I
right.
felt those were the two kind of forces pushing against each other in the world. But I also wanted to do a story about friendship and love and how far you go to help your friends and how
Yeah,
nice it is to live with people that you love and how you'll do anything to hold on to that, even
right.
if maybe your loyalty goes too far, love goes too far, that kind
Yeah.
of thing.
So I mean, the Cutaway was your first book. What tell us about the process of writing a second book? Because I mean, I know having, having talked to you along the way, that this was, what do you
Okay.
think makes it, what do you think made it like so, I mean, it's sophomore books are known for being, like you said, survived. But what is it about it that makes it so hard, do you think?
You don't really know your process. You don't know your process. Your first book was kind of like a wing and a prayer. I don't know. It came together, people loved it, whatever. And so, and it sold or it didn't sell or you know, the second book was difficult. Well, the second book was difficult for two reasons. The outside and personal world were just so noisy. And then the interior process of writing was I didn't know. I wasn't sure how to get at these things I wanted to get at. And I didn't have enough experience to say, oh, hey, you know what? Maybe structure takes me there. Like I know this now, I'm writing this book three and I'm just writing so fast. And I'm like, this is so much easier. And it's because, the second book really teaches you, I think, how to be an author, or at least for me. I mean, you probably didn't have that. You wrote so many books. But like for me, I
I
didn't
did.
know, I had no idea. Um, how to get at they were kind of thinky ideas.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny because when you talk about it sort of thematically, it is very like sort of cerebral and intellectual. And yet when you read the book, of course, even though it's all there, it's not like I'm like, oh, I'm not thinking like, oh, this is something this is not a cerebral idea. It's very much based in the characters, which you had take that sort of, esoteric idea of delusion and instill it into these characters. But when you put it the way you did, which is to take one character who can't face the truth and one character who forces the truth, it's that, and the conflict that arises, it makes so much sense. So
And in all of that, there's this huge snowstorm. Everybody's
yes,
stuck inside, much like COVID.
yeah,
And this person disappears in the middle of a snowstorm. And the funny thing about disappearing is that you always expect them to just walk around the corner.
yeah,
Like you can't in your head, you can't figure out, um, when is he going to come home? When are we going to hear something about him? Maybe he'll just show up on TV. And so the real thing, the big question is, where is Josh? How do we find Josh? And
right.
then the second thing is, how do we do that without losing each other?
Yeah. Yeah, it's so true. I mean, and then set in the world of Washington, D.C., it's just like you got the texture. And I mean, having lived in D.C. over a winter where I think one time we got like 2 inches of snow and it shut the whole world down. I mean, you live in Montana and you're like, really? But in Washington, D.C., really, like any amount of, it's not even necessary proper snow. It can be just a little bit of sleet and it really does just
Girl,
shut.
let me tell you a story. When I lived on the hill, I was, I think, fresh out of college. I was in news maybe 2 or 3 years, and I had this little apartment on Capitol Hill, and in the alley behind the house where this big house that was broken up into all these apartments, where all the rats were, was my car. And we had what we called the snowpocalypse, which was two snowstorms on top of each other that gave us, 12 to 14 inches of snow. Boston would have cleared it out in an afternoon. We had a mayor who said, someone asked him, what were the snow plants? And he said, spring. And that's how long it took me to get my car out of the alley. It was that deep. DC's much better now. I
Yeah.
mean, but still, sometimes, if there's even the possibility of, say, an ice storm, they will definitely close schools.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that is right. I think that is it's so so interesting. But I think that it's like what a beautiful sort of structure to put on the book, right? To sort of set it inside, like you said, the sort of claustrophobia of a snowstorm, and also the sort of inherent danger of like if something bad could happen because it's freezing outside and we're stuck here, and do we have the right supplies and will we be okay? So I think it's all built in so beautifully. So tell me a little bit about like what it is like to write the third book now that you did the marathon second. And what I should ask first was the cutaway when you wrote that's your first book, which I also loved. When you wrote that book, was that the first full-length book you'd ever written?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, see, I mean, so I have books buried in the backyard. I have, but that's how you learn. You just don't sell your first three books.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that makes a difference too, because I mean, not to say that my second book was easy, but it was not really my second book, right? It was my fifth book or whatever. So that's part of it. Okay, so tell us about this new, like what it's like to now write now that you're like a pro.
Well, you figure out what you love, and I basically just love writing about women's lives
Yeah.
at different points. So the cutaway was about this woman who was trying to ascend her career. She was a career woman. These the Watch Us Fall is really about that weird cusp of time. You're just out of college, you're getting to be an adult, you have these different things pulling at you. You have to find jobs, you find lovers, you try to hold on your friends, and you're becoming an adult, but not yet an adult. In the book that I'm writing now, I wanted to write a crime thriller about motherhood. Yeah.
Yeah.
But through a very old crime that happened, 6 years prior.
Okay.
So, and it's about these women, two families, and the mothers actually hate each other.
Mm. Which I mean, God, we're known to do, right? Sometimes we're supposed to be sort of like bonded together to raise each other up. But boy, we were taught early on that we're not supposed to do that. We're supposed to tear each other down. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I love that idea.
Yeah,
And
the reasons.
I mean, I'm sure. Yeah. And there is always right good reasons. But I do think that women are pitted against each other unnaturally by the patriarchy, and you know, I think it's a swell design to get us to sort of like look at each other like I mean not all of us should even like get along anyway, but I do think sometimes it's instilled in us to compete in ways that don't really benefit anyone.
But then also, like in the book that I'm writing now, the third book, it's called Mercy Park. There is a great friendship too. I think that women as friends, um, and I really loved exploring this in Watch Us Fall the most. Women as friends can be as passionate and nearly intimate
Yeah.
and loyal as any relationship you will ever have. And I think, and just going back to Watch Us Fall very quickly, at the end of the book, when I had to say goodbye to the girls, you write the end, they say it's ready to go, you have to send it. I still miss them and I still think about them. And I think about how many fun things, they had the greatest parties. They knew all the places to hang out. They had terrific clothes and I miss their handbags. I mean, these are like sort of, I missed, game night and girls' night out. And
Yeah.
so these are things that are really irreplaceable. And so I was able to use one of the main character in this book I'm writing now. I gave her, another best friend, and I just love it. I love the texture of it. I love two women sticking together and, you know, navigating the world.
I mean, and I think that's what we do, right? I mean, I have to say, like, I mean, have me living through the last few years of my life. If I did not have my girlfriends, I mean, and I think it's not, you don't even have to go through a terrible divorce, or any real trauma to know how valuable our girlfriends are because there's just nobody who kind of understands what it's like to be, a woman, the struggles we face, motherhood, being a sister, daughter, all those things, and friends than your girlfriends. And the older we get, the more you hear that, right? The older we get, the more we're all like, oh, forget everything except the girlfriends, right? Because they're the ones who pull you through.
Right. And it's just, it's a different way of communicating. There's a vulnerability that we give each other and we allow each other. I talk about things with my best girlfriends that I just don't talk to my brothers or my husband or anybody about. I mean, it's different.
Yeah.
Um, I also love, the tactile feel of female friendship. Like one of the images of Watch Us Fall, I saw these four girls, young girls, not young, teenagers, in a tree on Assateague Island. And they're just like hanging out in this tree and they're bumping up against each other and they were hugging each other. I was like, you girls are going to fall out of that tree.
Yeah.
But I, and this was during COVID too. I was like, oh, it was so great to see people get outside. And I kept thinking about if there were guys up in the tree, would they be hugging all over each other?
Be pushing each other out of the tree.
I don't
Right?
know. That's a different novel.
That's a different novel. Well, and that's a really good point too. And I actually I sometimes feel a little sad for men. Like you have a son as well. There's the idea that these boys don't necessarily have, and I think the younger generations. I'm sure you feel this way about your son as I do about mine. There's so much more emotionally available and willing to be vulnerable, and they've really I feel like it's a whole different thing. But I do sometimes think about when I would look at my ex-husband and think about the kind of friendships he had and the people that he got to talk to and what they talk about. It's just it doesn't have this. They don't go to the same depths, and I feel like then they don't get the same level of support. And I feel like we can all use it. Who can't use an extra like sort of place to lean? I feel like I'm like an octopus. I have like eight places where I can lean at any one moment.
I
So
love that.
valuable.
I love that. I love that. And I love emotional language. I love, it's great to be thinky, but it's also really important, I think, to talk about or to show that you trust someone, through language. I mean, it's just valuable.
And it is such a, I mean, it is such a conduit into sort of other people's lives. I think that's another thing that we end up doing as women more than men is to sort of really, or in general, I never should say, obviously there's fabulous men in the world. But I do feel like when we sort of more naturally sort of get into somebody else's shoes and say, wow, what would that be like if somebody has a sick child or somebody's, child didn't get the thing they wanted, or we all feel those sort of like emotions much more universally, which I love. Um, And I think in Watch Us Fall, these girls, they come from very different backgrounds. I think the other thing that's so fun about them is they met when they were very young, right? They ended up being kind of like freshman roommates,
Mhm.
or suite mates. And so and that's a very bizarre way to become really good friends, right? You sort of get assigned to one another. And I think, some of them are really similar in some ways and not similar in other ways. And there's always that sense of, am I going to fit in? Is it going to be, are they going to accept me? And so I think we show up to college with all this, with excitement and also a lot of terror. And that doesn't necessarily go away, right? It's always sort of there. And so, I mean, hopefully eventually, but it's certainly there when they're fresh out of college, like these girls.
Right. And, I was writing this, and my daughter had just left for
Yeah.
college, and she was in a suite, and she had three other roommates. And and it was during COVID, and they were stuck inside this dorm room and this dorm suite, and they just were really close.
Yeah.
Take anything from her. I didn't. I mean, like, I don't write about my kids. I would never do.
No, 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 of course.
But like, I love the fact that she was so far from home.
Yeah.
She went to school in upstate New York. I live down here in Maryland. It was so far away. And for me, it was traumatizing. I just thought, gosh, what if she needs something? What if she gets sick? Whatever. But she just had the time of her life, and she made lifelong friends, you
It's so,
know.
I mean, it doesn't always go that well that way. So it's
It doesn't
really
always
wonderful,
way. No.
right? It's really, really, I mean, just like so powerful when it does. And I think it's so fun that you're writing a mom crime thriller, because how we look at the world, I mean, I think that's like right after you have kids, I mean, you've written all of your novels since having children, but I had written a couple before, and boy, what scares me the most in the whole world now is so different from what scared me, before children.
I mean, the number one question, which actually crime thrillers or psychological thrillers answer, is how do we protect the people we love from this world? And that's the sort of through line, the sort of feeling of all the characters in this book three that I'm writing. But it's also the same thing as in Watch Us Fall. I mean, I'm just kind of obsessed with, for me, I'll take a hit. I can't stand it when somebody I love is hurting.
Yeah,
It just
right.
hurts so bad. And you feel so many things you don't want to feel, and it's so uncomfortable.
So uncomfortable. It's so
So
much,
uncomfortable. It's like,
it's so much more uncomfortable than being hurt yourself.
yeah, hit me and it's over. I get over it. The swelling goes down, whatever. It's fine. But if somebody hits my kid,
Oh, no. Mm-mm.
it's
No.
a whole nother story. So, and there's the discomfort, and there's also the psychological um, conflict of, what do I do? I have to do something. I have to do something,
Right.
but I don't know what to do because it's there's some things that are not done. And
Right.
then what are not done? And do they cross the line? And I think that's thriller level when they're willing
Yeah.
to cross the line.
Yeah, when you're like, I need to kill that person because
Well,
they.
I wasn't going to say that, but yeah.
Well, I mean,
Right.
I think it's funny because
You know.
I mean, the book I'm working on now, um, is about, it's similar, right? It's about like the fact that, this woman goes through a terrible divorce, and it is somewhat weird to think about the fact that my ex-husband hurt me the most, right? I was the wife. But my anger at him and my sorrow is so much more for what he did to our kids. Even though he didn't cheat on our kids. I mean, he did, he did and he didn't. But I think that's so interesting because it really, and maybe in some ways it's easier to pull myself out of it and be like, I'm fine. I'm gonna be fine, because otherwise, if I didn't think that, it would be a bigger struggle. But I do think actually my reaction is much stronger, to your point, in protection of them. It's like, you can hurt me, but do not hurt my children.
Yeah, I mean, I think a heartbreaking is one thing. It's when it's in your gut.
Oh,
It's when
yeah.
it's your heart and your gut. And the kid thing is when it's in your gut.
Yeah,
You
it is. Yeah,
know?
that's when you want to kill someone. Nobody has died. Nobody has been murdered. No,
Well, I mean, it's so funny
Christina
because
and I have not murdered anybody.
no, I know. Yeah, I remember when my kids were little. there was a bus hit a bus went around the corner right around our house and hit this trailer that was like sticking out for these lawnmower guys. Anyway, so the bus has to stop, and the lawnmower guy is like screaming at the bus, calling her unbelievable things. I mean, like threatening her. And the kids are all like, in elementary school like this at the
Right.
window, listening to all this stuff. And my kids actually got off the bus. They were all supposed to stay on the bus, but they're like, and they ran home. They're like, Mom, this guy's going to beat up the bus driver. And I'm like, what? And it wasn't even my kids at that point, but it's like this man, this grown ass man,
Right.
it's like screaming obscenities and scaring these children. They're like, oh, the kids are crying. And I'm like, oh, forget that. So I ran around the, corner and I'm like, you, and
Yeah.
just said whatever it was I said. And he sat down. He did. He sat down.
Good. Well, I mean, we're the mama bears on behalf of all the children. Like, I think that's right. I mean, and God, yeah. I mean, but it is funny when things something touches our children, how profound it becomes and how much bigger a deal, right? So
And it's so funny too, because I'm like, you know how big I am. I'm like 5 foot nothing. And this man was like
yes,
six.
I think you can be plenty intimidating, Christina. You don't have to be taller than you are. Look at you and Angie both. None of us is very tall, but we can be
None
very
of us
good.
is.
Yeah, you wouldn't want to take the three of us on.
Mm-mm. Don't even try, and especially not our kids.
And not right, exactly our kids, which actually is kind of fun. So one of the things that Christine and I are going to talk about after this interview is that we are going to do some signings together in early March of next year for Watch Us Fall and Pinky Swear with our friend Angie Kim, who wrote most recently Happiness Falls. So we have a little trio that has gone and done a writer's retreat, and it feels like we've done more than one, but I guess in the end we've only actually accomplished one, but we've talked about it.
It feels like we've done so many.
It does, doesn't it? I know. So I'm looking, so that is really fun. And actually I have not had a book out forever, and I haven't toured for a book forever. So one of the things that I think I'm most excited about is gonna get to tour with some girlfriends.
I am buying up the wine now.
Start right, exactly.
And the chocolate.
Shut up. I know. It's for me, it's mostly the chocolate. When I went, I think I ate my body weight in chocolate, but it was good. It was so wonderful. So it's so fun to talk to you, Christina. I'm so excited about touring with you. I'm so excited about Watch Us Fall. And the new book, Mercy Park. What a fun title.
And I need a copy of your book.
Oh, I know. We got to talk about that. I will get you one. I have a few of them around, so I will
I
absolutely.
want one of those.
I
You
have
just
some. I know they were like, everyone's like, make sure your book is visible. Sometimes I move around, so now it's visible at multiple places. So anyway, and we will be giving away a copy of Watch Us Fall, either on the Facebook Killer Women group or on the Killer Women podcast on Instagram. So take a look. Keep your eye out for that because you want to read this, Christina. So much fun to get to talk about Watch Us Fall and to have you on the show finally.
I'm so glad to be here finally.
So good. This is a wonderful story. Everyone, thank you for joining us today on Killer Women with Christina Kovac, and we will see you next time. Bye.